Welcome to the Leadership Buzz with Lloyd Buzz Buzzle, ICF credentialed coach and retired Air Force officer. This podcast is for leaders who want to align behavior with values and grow in self-awareness. Each episode, one book, one idea, one story, and 3 coaching questions. Work hard, tell the truth. Here's Buzz.
I've been thinking a lot lately about where leadership decisions really come from. Not just the big moments people see publicly, but the ordinary decisions we make every day, in relationships, at work, and in life. I've come to believe that most of those decisions are not truly built in the moment. They're shaped over years through values, mentors, faith and hardship, experiences, and watching other people lead. Today's episode really made me reflect on that in a deeper way. TJ, tell us about the book that we're going to hear today.
In this episode, Buzz reflects on the book Let's Roll by Lisa Beamer, the story of Todd Beamer, one of the passengers aboard Flight 93 during the September 11th attacks. Todd became known for the words, "Let's roll," as passengers attempted to stop the hijackers from reaching their intended target. But this episode is not just about one moment of courage in a national tragedy. It is about the lifetime of values, faith, mentors, experiences, and ordinary daily choices that build the foundation for the decisions leaders make under pressure. Because most defining decisions in leadership are rarely built in the moment. They are built over a lifetime. Here's Buzz.
After reading Lisa Beamer's book, Let's Roll, I found myself thinking less about one moment on September 11th and more about everything that came before it. Lisa Beamer's book on Todd and the situation that happened on 9/11 on United Flight 93 talks about the ill-fated flight as well as some glimpses of a genuine American hero. She talks candidly about Todd's growing up years, their marriage, and their last week together. But I think about those situations, and I think about how when people hear Todd Beamer's name, they think about courage under pressure. They think about Flight 93, and they think about the words that he spoke, "Let's roll." But what stayed with me most was the idea that moments like that are usually built long before they ever happen. Lisa Beamer wrote something in the book that really stayed with me. She said that when the storm came on September 11th, Todd did not have to check the blueprints to see what his life was built on. He already knew that. That line hit me hard because I think day-to-day leadership works exactly the same way. I do not think courage suddenly appears in crisis. I think courage is built slowly over time. And that's around dinner tables, on sports fields, mentors, faith, hardship, and through setbacks. Through ordinary daily choices repeated over years and years. And I think all of us are building those blueprints right now, whether we realize it or not. One of the mistakes we make sometimes is assuming leadership is only revealed in dramatic moments. But honestly, most leadership happens in very ordinary places, whether that be in meetings, difficult conversations, or how we treat people when we're frustrated. Maybe even whether we take responsibility, whether we stay calm under pressure, and it happens if we tell the truth when it would be easier not to. And I think those ordinary moments shape us much more than we realize, because eventually pressure comes. Maybe not on an airplane at a dramatic national tragedy, but pressure still comes for all of us. It's a difficult leadership decision. A storm comes, a family crisis, maybe a conflict inside the team. It could be a failure, betrayal, maybe even a job loss or a tragedy health scare. A moment where you had to decide who you really are. And when those moments come from, I honestly do think most people suddenly rise magically to some level of leadership they have never practiced before. More often, we fall back on the foundation we've been building for years. That is why values matter and all those mentors you've had matter. And that's where integrity matters and why leadership development matters. And honestly, one of the things I appreciated most about Let's Roll was that Lisa Beamer did not describe Todd as some perfect superhero. He was a man whose life had been shaped over time. A husband, a father, a person of faith, a hard worker, a great teammate and friend. He influenced people around him and by the values he chose to live every day. I think sometimes we underestimate how much influence ordinary people have on us over time. Because as leaders, leaders influence others. And if you influence others, you are a leader. That could be your parents, teachers, coaches, those mentors you have in life, supervisors you meet, military leaders, faith leaders, even your coworkers and friends. Sometimes one sentence from somebody stays with us for decades. Sometimes it's not even what everybody says. Sometimes it's simply how they consistently behave and how we watch them and what they model for us. It's whether they treat people and how they treat people and how they respond under stress and how you see them as they're calm, as they tell the truth every day. Whether they protect others, whether they take responsibility, all of that becomes part of the blueprint.
Coach Buzz, do you think most people recognize those defining leadership moments while they are happening?
Honestly, no, I really don't. I think most defining moments feel ordinary while we are living them. That's what makes them so important. I don't think parents sitting around dinner tables realize sometimes they may be shaping those future leadership decisions 20 or 30 years down the road. Those youth coaches, I know, realize the impact they're having. I think mentors understand how deeply one conversation can influence someone's future. But those moments accumulate over time, and eventually they show up later under pressure or in day-to-day life. I think back over my own life and career, and some of the biggest leadership lessons I learned did not happen in formal training. They happened by watching other people and how they lead and how they act and how they modeled leadership for me. Sometimes just watching people lead well, sometimes watching people lead poorly. Both taught me something, but I honestly think that I learned more from the better leaders than the worst leaders. Because I think a lot of times some people say, oh, we can learn leadership from what we see and what not to do. I think just the opposite. I think it's what we see as positive and how we can look at the truth and the honesty in the good people that we have as leaders. People are always watching leaders, not just during speeches or presentations. They watch how leaders behave when frustrated, tired, criticized, when pressure arises and mistakes happen. That's when leadership becomes real, and that's when character is revealed. I think that one of the reasons integrity matters so much is just that, because integrity under pressure is usually much harder than integrity when things are easy. When you have everything you need, all the resources, all the people, all the money, and everything's going well, sometimes that's very easy. Anybody can talk about values. The real question is whether those values survive under pressure. That's leadership. And honestly, I think that's why stories like Todd Beamer's resonate so deeply with people. Because deep down, people recognize authentic courage when they see it. Not performative courage, not social media courage, but real courage, the kind built quietly over years. And while most of us will never face a moment as dramatic as Flight 93, leadership still calls us to make courageous decisions every day. That's about telling the truth, taking responsibility, just helping people, staying calm and admitting our mistakes, and protecting others, treating people with dignity and respect, choosing integrity over convenience, and really doing the right thing when nobody notices. These moments never make headlines, but they still reveal character. And honestly, I think repeatedly daily behavior matters far more than occasional dramatic moments, because leadership is usually not one giant heroic act. Leadership is consistency over time. It's repeated values, habits, choices, integrity, and just service over time. And eventually those repeated behaviors become who we are.
So, Buzz, if leadership foundations are built slowly over time, what should leaders focus on most right now?
I think it's important leaders focus on the small daily choices that eventually become their identity, because eventually repetition becomes character. How you treat people, responding under pressure, and having those teachable moments. Whether you remain humble when it matters and you're curious when it matters, or if you blame others or take responsibility. That really matters. And when you listen, it matters. If you care about people, people are going to notice. And I think leaders should think carefully about who and what is influencing them. Who are you learning from and who are you surrounding yourself with? I mean, who's going to challenge you? And who in your organization besides yourself is modeling integrity and that service, the servant leader? Who helps you become better instead of simply more successful? because eventually all of those influences shape the decisions you make later under pressure. You know, one thing I did really appreciate about Let's Roll was it reminded me leadership is deeply human. It's not perfect. It's not image management, pretending to have everything figured out. It's just people trying to live according to the values that matter. Sometimes those values get tested. Actually, eventually they always get tested. And that's always true in organizations, coaching, in the military, in families. And honestly, I think one of the most important questions leaders can ask themselves is this: why are you making the decision you are making today? What experiences shaped them? What experiences shaped you? What people influenced you? And what values strengthen you? Your foundations are really building underneath your life right now, because eventually pressure comes for everyone. And when it does, you probably will not suddenly become different in that moment. More often than not, you will fall back on the foundation you have already built. And that foundation is being built every single day through a conversation, a decision, a habit, one act of integrity, one moment of courage at a time. I related this story on a previous podcast, but I think it's worth repeating here. On September 11th, just as Flight 93 or shortly after it went down in that field in Shanksville, we had to go aboard a jet during an exercise and inventory classified documents. During that inventory, we recognized that the previous crew had not done the correct thing. On that day, it was important that we did the right thing. And one of my fellow officers chimed in and said, "Hey, you can never go wrong by telling the truth." And that really, really stuck with me over the years. And I've related that through as many times as I could during feedbacks and to other officers and to other people, because it's really true. You can never go wrong by telling the truth. And sometimes that truth will hurt you. There are consequences for things, let's face it. But I think the bigger lesson for me that day on 9/11 through that story is that I learned that I needed to be prepared to be able to say just that thing at the right moment and not delay, because those decisions, and that is built over a lifetime of preparation and thinking through that and modeling it for other people. So when I saw that officer take that action that day and say that, even ahead of me, I thought I need to be prepared. I need to be ready for those integrity matters as they come up. You know, I also think courage is not just about what we choose to do under pressure. It's what we refuse to let shape us over time, because all of us are being influenced by constantly something. That could be the culture, disappointment, ego, negativity, or frustration. If we're not careful, those things slowly begin shaping the way we lead, the way we treat people, the way we see ourselves. One of those reasons Todd Beamer's story still resonates is because his courage did not appear randomly in one moment. It was connected to a life that's been built on values, faith, relationships, and character. The foundation had already been formed long before September 11th. I think that's the way leadership works, because eventually all of us face that pressure. Maybe not on a national stage, but in moments where we have to decide whether we'll compromise, whether we'll stay steady, tell the truth, treat people well, and protect our integrity. And those moments usually reveal what has been shaping us all along. That's why I think leaders need to ask themselves an important question. What is shaping me right now? What voices am I listening to? What habits am I building? And the values that are strengthening me? Because eventually we become what we repeatedly practice. And leadership under pressure is usually forged long before the pressure arrives. I really enjoyed this episode, and I enjoyed the book by Lisa Beamer, Let's Roll. It's an amazing story about ordinary people and extraordinary courage. Thanks for listening today. I look forward to your feedback on this episode.
Coach Buzz, can you give us this week's 3 coaching questions for our listeners?
For this week's 3 coaching questions, the first is, think of one decision you have to make today. What experiences, values, or people from your life have influenced you the way you are approaching that decision? 2, tell me a story or moment from your life that helped shape the way you lead or respond today. And finally, if the people closest to you describe the foundation you have built your life on, what do you think that they would say, and how would they describe that?
As Buzz shared today, Most defining leadership moments are rarely built in the moment itself. They are shaped over years through values, faith, mentors, hardship, family, and ordinary daily choices. Todd Beamer's courage aboard Flight 93 did not suddenly appear on September 11th. It was built over a lifetime. And while most of us will never face a moment that dramatic, leadership still calls all of us to make decisions every day that reveal who we are, to tell the truth, treat people well, take responsibility, stay calm under pressure, and put others ahead of ourselves. So maybe the real question is not simply what decision you will make tomorrow, but what foundation you are building today. Work hard, tell the truth. Over to you, Buzz.
Thanks for listening to the Leadership Buzz. If you found this episode helpful, please subscribe so you don't miss future conversations. And if you have a moment, leave a rating or review. That helps other leaders discover the show. If these kinds of leadership questions resonate with you and you'd like to explore them more deeply, feel free to reach out to me. Coaching conversations often start exactly this way. Until next time, work hard, tell the truth.